Welcome to All Things Esoteric. This is episode 23. My name is Anthony. Now, this week we're going to talk about Satanism. We're going to get into exactly what Satanism is. We're going to get into the devil archetype a little bit. And we're going to critically analyze all the claims of Satanism, as it's a term that gets thrown around real loosely. And I want to get real deep into the details. And I think this is very much needed, that you guys will enjoy it. I highly recommend, if you are unfamiliar with the archetype of the devil and Capricorn and Saturn, to go back and listen to our episodes on Saturn, our episode on Capricorn, and our episode on Pan, because he falls within the devil archetype. The reason why we covered all the basics first is so we can have conversations like this without having to spend too much time going back to the basics. But I'm going to give a real brief refresher of the devil archetype, just so this can stand alone. So the devil card in the tarot deck is the card representing Capricorn, which is our masculine earth sign. Here's an excerpt from Crowley's Book of Thoth on the devil card. This card represents creative energy in its most material form. In the zodiac, Capricornus occupies the zenith. It is the most exalted of the signs. It is the goat leaping with lust upon the summits of the earth. The sign is ruled by Saturn, who makes for selfhood and perpetuity. In this sign, Mars is exalted, showing in its best form the fiery material energy of creation. The formula of this card is then the complete appreciation of all existing things. He rejoices in the rugged and the barren no less than in the smooth and the fertile. All things equally exalt him. He represents the finding of ecstasy in every phenomenon. However naturally repugnant, he transcends all limitations. He is Pan. He is all. Saturn. The ruler is Set, the ass-headed god of the Egyptian deserts. So, I would say, maggots eating a rotting corpse is instinctually deeply repulsive, but isn't the circle of life beautiful? In Egyptian mythology, Set is blamed for the most negative and unpleasant things: famine, the desert, storms, violence, a very adversarial figure. However, in one myth, in one of the many battles between Horus and Set, Horus is about to kill Set. Then Isis, who is Horus's mother, saves Set. Horus, feeling betrayed, asks his mother why she saved his enemy. She explains that the existence of Set is necessary to maintain the order and balance of the universe. In some Old Kingdom illustration, Set can even be seen defending the sun god Ra, the highest divinity in the Heliopolitan pantheon of Egypt, during his nightly voyage through the underworld. The Saturn Devil Capricorn archetype is about the struggles that make you stronger. People learn and grow from challenges. There is a greater motivation for self-improvement when there is an enemy that needs to be defeated. Now, Capricorn is ruled by the planet Saturn, which shares many similarities and also falls into the devil archetype, as do most gods and goddesses representing or affiliated with that planet Saturn across cultures. See our episodes again on Saturn, Capricorn, and Pan for more information. Now, what if Capricorn energy was the only energy that you perceived and acted through? Then you would have Anton LaVey's philosophy of Satanism. So I pulled a few excerpts from Anton LaVey's Satanic Bible just to get a general feel for his philosophy. I encourage you to read the entire thing for yourself. Here's page 27. Satanism advocates practicing a modified form of the Golden Rule. Our interpretation of this rule is, do unto others as they do unto you. Because if you do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and they, in turn, treat you badly, it goes against human nature to continue to treat them with consideration. You should do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But if your courtesy is not returned, they should be treated with the wrath they deserve. Another one on page 34. The Satanists would not intentionally hurt others by violating their sexual rights. If you attempt to impose your sexual desires upon others who do not welcome your advances, you are infringing upon their sexual freedom. Therefore, Satanism does not advocate rape, child molesting, sexual defilement of animals, or any other form of sexual activity which entails the participation of those who are unwilling or whose innocence or naivete would allow them to be intimidated or misguided into doing something against their wishes. Under no circumstances would a Satanist sacrifice any animal or baby. For centuries, propagandists of the right-hand path have been prattling over the supposed sacrifices of small children and voluptuous maidens at the hands of diabolists. It would be thought that anyone reading or hearing of these heinous accounts would immediately question their authenticity, taking into consideration the biased sources of the stories. Satanism encourages its followers to indulge in their natural desires. Only by doing so can you be a completely satisfied person with no frustrations which can be harmful to yourself and others around you. Therefore, the most simplified description of the satanic belief is indulgence instead of abstinence. People often mistake compulsion for indulgence, but there is a world of difference between the two, still from the Satanic Bible here. A compulsion is never created by indulging, but by not being able to indulge. By making something taboo, it only serves to intensify the desire. Everyone likes to do the things they have been told not to. Forbidden fruits are the sweetest. Continuing with Satanic Bible, I question all things as I stand before the festering and varnished facades of your haughtiest moral dogmas. I write thereon in letters of blazing scorn, lo and behold, all this is fraud. Love your enemies and do good to them that hate and use you. Is this not the despicable philosophy of the spaniel that rolls on its back when kicked? He who turns the other cheek is a cowardly dog. Give blow for blow, scorn for scorn, doom for doom, with compound interest liberally added thereunto. Eye for eye, tooth for tooth, eye fourfold, 100-fold. Make yourself a terror to your adversary, and when he goeth his way, he will possess much additional wisdom to ruminate over. Thus shall you make yourself respected in all the walks of life, and your spirit, your immortal spirit, shall live, not in an intangible paradise, but in the brains and sinews of those whose respect you have gained. Life is the great indulgence, death the great abstinence, therefore make the most of life, here and now. There is no heaven of glory and bright, and no hell where sinners roast. Here and now is our day of torment, here and now is our day of joy, here and now is our opportunity. Choose ye this day, this hour, for no Redeemer liveth. Blessed are the strong, for they shall possess the earth. Cursed are the weak, for they shall inherit the yoke. Now, what do I make of this? If you're familiar with the Capricorn and Saturn archetypes, they were screaming at you in everything that I just read. Those writings could not be more Saturn and Capricorn. And so LeVay's Satanism revolves around the Capricorn and Saturn virtues of accepting and celebrating nature, including one's body and natural instincts, which of course goes completely in the face of Christian teachings, but on its own, it's hard to argue that that's evil, at least in my view. Also, It is the best philosophy for, specifically, for operating with success in the physical world, but only the physical world, as LeVay considers all ideas of afterlife, heaven, hell, reincarnation to be fantasies. In my opinion, the shortcomings of this philosophy stem from the fact that it focuses on a single archetype, that of Capricorn, the devil, Saturn. They're all pretty much one. And as every single archetype has its positives and negatives, its strengths and weaknesses, you don't turn the other cheek to a kidnapper in your house. However, there are situations where turning your cheek and loving your enemy has its merits. Although it may or may not lead to a pleasant physical outcome, it may be the emotional or spiritually right thing to do, especially if you believe in an afterlife and that this world is only temporary. If you turn your cheek to everyone and love all your enemies, you'll end up being tortured to death at a young age by your enemies, like Jesus, still asking God to forgive his murderers, for they not know which they do, which may be true. Most people deliberately hurting other people are hurt themselves, in a way, a victim of circumstance. But if you want any kind of earthly success, even earthly averageness, you cannot apply the philosophy of Jesus in every situation, or you will end up impoverished and dying young at the hand of your enemies. Similarly, if one applies the satanic philosophy to every situation, one will become emotionally and spiritually injured or dead, isolated from the warmth of human kindness and love, something we often see in people with the most earthly riches and power. It is a matter of applying the appropriate energy in the appropriate time and place, which is all entirely subjective. It's up to you and your judgment. But whatever you do, do not make your entire mode of operation one archetype. You have to learn how to be and use all of those energies. Now that we are equipped with the knowledge of the archetype of the devil and those who call themselves Satanists, we can critically analyze the claims of numerous well-known individuals and groups of people who get called satanic. Now, when most of the normie Christian types call someone satanic, what they really mean is evil or immoral, usually with no knowledge on the archetype of the devil other than their Christian ideas. Nevertheless, how a word is used, that really determines its definition. It doesn't really matter what the dictionary says. So, when evaluating claims of Satanism, we will consider whether stated philosophies and actions fall in line with the archetype of the devil or Anton LaVey's philosophy of Satanism, and also we will consider if the qualities of evil and immorality are present. Of course, are all highly subjective, but at the same time, there are some things that most people can agree on. First, we'll start with celebrities. So I'm not going to get into celebrities using seeing eye hand symbols, pentagrams, plastic devil horns to seem edgy or mysterious and get attention. Tim Dillon said it best when he was talking about some pop guy, Sam Smith, that being afraid of these people is like being afraid of the girl working at Hot Topic in all black clothes, black makeup, face piercings, a dog collar. It's just silly. Like, they just, why would we be afraid of these people? They just want attention. The next most pointed to phenomenon as evidence of celebrity Satanism are event ceremonies such as Super Bowl halftime shows and award show performances that do occasionally showcase some very basic occult themes like the archetypes of planets, gods, and goddesses. To us that study these topics, of course, there is nothing evil or satanic about those basic concepts. Definitely not satanic on their own. And identifying planets and gods and ignorantly calling them satanic is the farthest this criticism usually goes when you hear it made. However, I will say that it is possible to use these basic archetypes for the purpose of manipulation. Also, there is some evidence for advanced spiritual techniques being used on celebrities with disregard for their health and safety. There are videos of many celebrities, such as Britney Spears and Beyonce, talking about altars that would take over when they're on stage and do the performing for them. Materialist psychologists would call this borderline personality disorder. The more spiritually minded would call it spiritual possession. However, both would agree that extreme trauma is the cause, and the power elite have made this a science through MK Ultra. MK Ultra is too big a topic for this podcast. If you don't know about it, I would suggest you read the declassified documents and listen to the many podcasts on it, such as various episodes of the Higher Side Chat and Grand Theft World. Personally, I think celebrities are the desperate idiots who are manipulated by the power elite above them. And that brings us to our next section, the power elite, the big T, they, the deep state, and the people who fund them, secret societies, and the government. Earlier, I described Anton LaVey's philosophy of Satanism as the best philosophy for operating on the earth plane. So, those who have the most money and power on earth at the top of the power pyramid have acted along the lines of that philosophy of self-interest and prioritizing the physical world above all else. However, there's no evidence they worship Satan. The people at the very top are sociopathic narcissists. They would never worship the loser of any mythology. The infiltration of the Bohemian Grove by Alex Jones was revelatory. Many of the most powerful people in the country, including politicians, business leaders, celebrities, were gathering in the woods performing rituals, the main one being what they called the cremation of care. So it is undeniable. We know the elite in this country participate in magical rituals. There is a centerpiece statue of an owl that Alex Jones calls Moloch, a deity that would definitely fall into the devil archetype. However, throughout history, Moloch has never been depicted as an owl. He was usually depicted as a bull or a lion. It is entirely possible the modern followers of Moloch adopted a new animal symbol. However, Alex never elaborates on why he thinks it's Moloch. It is entirely possible he heard other people at the event refer to it as Moloch, or possibly an inscription of some kind on the statue, but he does not inform us of this, neither during the video, and I've watched many interviews of him discuss this incident, and he never says exactly how he knows it's Moloch. So that's kind of a question mark there. But it is undeniable that the elite in this country do magic. That's not arguable. We're going to continue on that from a quote from The Elements of the Kabbalah in 10 Lessons by Eliphas Levi. This is the 10th lesson, a quote from it. For Christianity has always contained an occult or Johannite strain, which, while respecting the official line of the Church, has preserved an interpretation of the dogma quite other than the one given by the common man. Templars, Rosicrucians, and Freemasons of high degree have all belonged to this occult church in the last century, and he is writing this towards the end of the 19th century. The distinctive characteristic of this school is to avoid all publicity and anything that would make of it a dissident sect. Now, all these groups he just mentioned, the Templars, Rosicrucians, Freemasons, they all get called satanic. Is that an accurate label? No. However, these groups are Kabbalistic in nature, and Kabbalah is a body of knowledge on the non-physical world. And when you learn about the non-physical world, you can perceive and manipulate it, and the physical world is affected by the non-physical world. This is magic. Kabbalah and magic go hand in hand. You learn one to do the other. They're not separable. There are 14 presidents known to have been Freemasons, a Kabbalistic organization. And I have the list just for your information. Pulling it up right over here. Founding fathers, we'll start with George Washington, James Monroe, Andrew Jackson, James K. Polk, James Buchanan, Andrew Johnson, James A. Garfield, William McKinley, Theodore Roosevelt, William H. Taft, Warren G. Harding, Franklin D. Roosevelt, Harry S. Truman, Gerald Ford, all involved in, and many of them high-ranking members of this Kabbalistic magical organization. Known Bohemian Grove attendees who were definitely doing magical rituals where the centerpiece may or may not have been a god who definitely falls within the devil archetype. They include Ronald Reagan, Richard Nixon, George H.W. Bush, Henry Kissinger, Herbert Hoover, Newt Gingrich, Arnold Schwarzenegger. There is a long list of powerful and influential known attendees. These are just the most recognizable names. It is undeniable the government, business, and celebrity elites engage in magic. And most of us know these elites do not care for interests of common people. In fact, they hate the common people and wish to infinitely expand their power over them. They explained exactly how and why this is true in the scope. To explain exactly how and why this is true is outside the scope of this podcast. I can only point you towards the Grand Theft World podcast and their history blueprint on their website, grandtheftworld.com/brain, and the many books they reference. So, the elite are absolutely using their magical power and knowledge to these ends of infinitely expanding their control, something most of us would call evil, just like they do with every other kind of power and knowledge they have. So please, do not be mistaken into thinking Kabbalah, Hermeticism, astrology, tarot, or paganism is evil as well. These are the spiritual sciences. And just like physical science can be used to heal or make weapons, so can the spiritual sciences. So now let's get into a couple individuals who commonly get called satanic. First one, Aleister Crowley. There are many reasons he gets called satanic. Many reasons. The most glaring thing to address is how he often called himself the Beast 666. Christians immediately think of the devil and the book of Revelations. What most people don't know is that Crowley deeply studied Kabbalah, and in a Kabbalistic context and Kabbalistic interpretation of the Bible, the beast is a reference to Chakma, the second sphere on the tree of life, the divine masculine, the first emanation from the source. See our episode on Neptune and Chakma for more information. Chakma is actually said to be free of vices. Capricorn is masculine earth, so there is a connection to the divine masculine. But that is not quite enough commonality to consider Chakma as in line with the archetype of the devil. The number 666 comes from the two spirits called Corazon, who lay on both sides of the gates of Thoth. There's one Corazon on one side, another Corazon on the other side, leading one from the day side of the tree to the night side of the tree of life, also known as the Clippeth tree. Every sphere on the tree of life has a corresponding shell on the night side of the tree, stopping the spheres from emanating their light, considered a place of evil. Spirits in Hebrew Kabbalistic philosophy. Again, I would remind you of Isis's words about Set being necessary for the balance of the universe and the utility of satanic philosophy if limited only to the appropriate time and place, as the Clippeth shells and the spirits who dwell there also have their necessity and utility. Crowley speaks and writes in the language of the Kabbalah, something almost no one knows about or studies, and he did enjoy being edgy and provocative. This is a very good recipe for being misunderstood by the public. So, moving on to when he commonly wrote or said, "Do as thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will." Now, people often understandingly misinterpret that first line as Crowley communicates very cryptically, as saying to just do whatever you want with no fear of repercussions, to act as a psychopath, essentially, is what people think he means with that first line. However, a second line, love is the law, love under will, to say that one idea is under another idea, is to say it is the foundation or root. So if love is underneath will, that means his concept of will in this context, or the true will as he often called it, is rooted in love. True will is rooted in love. So if everyone is doing this type of will, your true will, everyone will be acting out of love. Of course, this isn't the layman's love either. In this cosmic context, love is more analogous to unity. So, do as thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will. In plain language means that people should aim to act from a place of unity, recognizing our interconnectedness with all life. This is in direct opposition to the philosophy of Anton LaVey, and I cannot understand how someone would perceive this idea as evil. Now, Crowley was quite fond of the god Pan, who definitely does fall into the archetype of the devil. See our episode on Pan if you are unfamiliar. However, there can be significant differences between revering a god that falls into the devil archetype and being a follower of Anton LaVey's philosophy of Satanism. As you can see, I've already pointed out one key area of difference. Pan is famous for his indulgence. However, he is only half animal. LaVey considers humans to be 100% animal and usually acting worse than animals. Pan being represented as half human, half animal symbolizes equilibrium and harmony between one's animal instinct and one's instincts to act on a higher plane, one's divine instincts. He is the divine father who is equal sides fearsome and loving, not repressing his animal instincts, nor letting them rule all behavior. There is a time for love and kindness, and there's a time for cold-hearted violence. LaVey was hyper-focused on the physical plane. Crowley was occupied with the spiritual sciences. Now, a last note on Crowley. There are many rumors of him, of course, harming people in various ways, doing evil deeds. I would definitely call some of the accusations against him evil, and I will not argue that they happened or that they didn't happen. I will simply say his stated philosophy certainly does not condone hurting of others or anything done to others involuntarily. Another well-known quote from him is, "Every man and woman is a star," meaning that everyone should have their own metaphorical solar system in which to act, unimpeded by the will of other stars. It is entirely possible he did not practice what he preached, and it is also possible these rumors were fabricated because he was a well-known person of his day, speaking in Kabbalistic metaphors no one understood, and on top of that, he enjoyed being provocative and offensive. In modern terms, he was an edgelord. It is not possible to know what really took place in the past. So, I will not say those crazy shit things either happened or did not happen. So, our last individual, Jack Parsons, a student of Crowley's. Most people who know the name Jack Parson know him as the Satanist who had a hand in founding NASA. And because of his relationship to Aleister Crowley and his writing an essay called The Manifesto of the Antichrist, which appears in a book called The Collective Writings of Jack Parsons, which includes the Book of Babylon, the Book of the Antichrist, and analysis by a master of the temple. The Book of Babylon details Parsons' rituals to summon Babylon. She is summoned, tells him to go on a pilgrimage, and eventually leads to Parsons taking the oath and title of Antichrist in the OTO, which is the magical organization Crowley was the head of. In the manifesto of the Antichrist, Parsons is speaking as the Antichrist, inspired by Babylon, who can also be called an Antichrist. What exactly is meant by Antichrist? We must not judge a book by its cover. We have to actually read it. Page 1. This is the introduction. This book contains the record of a magical experiment relating to the invocation of an elemental, the thereafter of the goddess or force called Babylon, and the results thereof. A note on the underlying philosophy. The present age is under the influence of the force called, in magical terminology, Horus, who I will let you know here, is often compared to Christ, and in this context to these people who are writing it, they are essentially interchangeable. This force relates to fire, Mars, and the sun, that is, to power, violence, and energy. It also relates to a child being innocent, i.e. undifferentiated. Its manifestations may be noted in the destruction of old institutions and ideas and discovery and liberation of new energies. The nature of Babylon relates to love, understanding, and Dionysian freedom, and is the necessary counterbalance or correspondence to the manifestation of Horus. It is indicated that this force is actually incarnate in some living woman as the result of the described magical operation. A more basic matter, however, is the indication that this force is incarnate in all men and women and needs only to be invoked to set free the spirit from the debris of the old aeon, and to direct the blind force of Horus into the constructive channels of understanding and love. And I would say, see the lust card of the Thoth deck, and that card is called Strength in other decks. That beautifully illustrates this concept. The methods of invocation are described in this text. Now you have a little background on some of their ideas. So, is understanding and love guiding the masculine impulse so scary and evil? More simply put, if Christ is a man of heaven, Babylon is a woman of the earth. In that way, she is the opposite of Christ. This is the type of edginess I was describing in Crowley. They certainly did not need to communicate understanding and love guiding masculine energy as the Antichrist. But when you pick apart what this metaphor actually means, the meaning is completely wholesome. Crowley and Parsons were edgelords, goth kids who got spiritual. Now, listen from the last part of this book, The Collected Writings of Jack Parsons. This is from Analysis by a Master of the Temple. This is essentially a biography of Jack Parsons' life. This is someone commenting on Jack Parsons' life. Your isolation as a child developed the necessary background of literature and scholarship, and the unfortunate experiences with other children, the requisite contempt for the crowd and for the group mores. You will note that these factors develop the needful hatred for Christianity without implanting a Christian guilt sense at an extremely early age. Now, doesn't this sound like every goth emo kid? They enjoy being nonconformists, offending people, having a dark, mysterious persona, lashing out against Christianity. But if you've ever gotten to know one, they're mostly sad and sensitive souls. This is why when you dig into the metaphors, they're ultimately wholesome. Also, Crowley had this idea that if you are too triggered by the words he is using to paint his metaphors, that you miss the meaning of what he is trying to say, you're not ready for what he has to say. It's a very logical and down-to-earth way of thinking, typical of Libra, and also Saturn is exalted within Libra. Saturn is Earth, notice how I said down-to-earth. So I hope I've provided a balanced, informed, critical evaluation of everything that we discussed today. Got the idea to do this episode just because the word Satanism just gets thrown around so much and so loosely. I guess I'm kind of a stickler for details, and those kind of things just irritate me. I encourage everyone to read the quoted books in their entirety for yourselves. That is the Satanic Bible and the collected writings of Jack Parsons, which includes the Manifesto of the Antichrist. I encourage you to never take my word for it. I want everyone to make up their own mind and have an amazing day. We will keep it chugging. We've been a while between episodes, crazy lives and stuff, but we're definitely not done. You will see us at some point.
Hello, welcome. This is Kate, and I thank you for joining us, episode 23 on Satanism. We had to do our recordings this time separately and not live, as life's just gotten busy and other things going on and things that were drawing our attentions away in other areas and just haven't been able to record consistently. So we just thank you for your patience, but we also know that all things work out as they should. I really believe that. I'm not stressed out about it and just believe that the information that comes to us that we feel we're supposed to share will come out at the time that it's supposed to come out. So, but we thank you for those that are following. Really appreciate you. We're growing a little bit in our YouTube channel. We've got 35 subscribers. Anthony and I are excited to just bring out topics and talk about things that I think are really important to talk about, and so does he, especially in light of where we're going within our own country, the United States of America, and then, of course, with AI where it's at. And, our podcast represents all things esoteric, so we're turning our head back a little bit to dig into the teachings and the writings and some of the thoughts that came before us as a way of reanalyzing them, really. But we also have our heads faced very firmly forward, too. We look back, but then we stay forward because that's where life is. So we're excited to continue on our trek and journey on all things esoteric. And again, thanks so much for joining us. But I'm going to get started this podcast on just a little bit about Pluto. I'm not going to do an overall sky map on this podcast like I usually do, like a snapshot, because I want to take a more closer look and analyze Anton LaVey's chart just a little bit, just a couple placements that I saw that were super important to talk about in regards to him and his involvement in the Church of Satan. So, want to say this as well. While this wasn't an easy topic for me, I got to tell you, the balance continues to come in my life as I move forward and understand that the world was bigger and is bigger than just those 66 books called the Bible, that there's a lot of other information out there that I just did not allow myself to see or study or be exposed to. And when we decided to do it on this topic, some of that old programming started to rise up, like, I'll just let Anthony do this, I'll just let Anthony take this podcast and I'll just do the sky map and we'll just be done. But as I sat with it, I began to see that no, I think my voice has a place here in regards to coming out of religion, in regards to coming out of paradigms that no longer I identify with. Having said that, I consider myself still a very deeply spiritual person. I have had some encounters and experiences that I cannot deny in regards to the archetype and master of Jesus Christ. And so, there's all that there too. But having said that, I remain open as always. And we would love your comments. We would love your engagement. Love to hear how you think we're doing, and maybe some topics in the comments. Place what you would like us to cover. We'd be more than happy to do that. But as we open up the map, I want to talk for a moment just about the general overall picture of July 1st, 2023. So when we look at the qualities and the elements going into July and what's going on with the way that the energy is behaving and what element is it in. And so we're sitting at a 43% fixed chart with a 39% cardinal and 18% mutable. So as you can see with the fixed energy, almost the same amount as the moving forward cardinal energy, there's this push and this pull, this going left and then this staying, this going forward and then this staying, this going to the right and then this staying. And the fixed signs are Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. Cardinal signs Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. Cardinal signs also rule the 4 angled houses of 1, 4, 7, and 10, very prominent houses within the zodiac. The elements that are at play here in their breakdown are water leading the pack at a 36% water chart. That would be Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. And then Earth sits at 29%, Fire 21, and Air 14. So with the lower 18% mutability, which is the more flexible of the 3 types and able to go with the flow, changeable, adaptable, and the air, being at 14%, where the air goes for freedom of action and movement and being able to go and come at will, there is a asking of us to look at where we need to raise our voices, where we need to be mentally alert and intellectually coming out in the conscious realm more, where we may be too fickle and inattentive and may be swayed by the opinions of others. These are the signs of Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius is air. Also, mutability there in air is going to allow someone to be able to speak their truth or be able to talk about their truth or be able to express their truth. With it being so low, that's not happening. So there's a restriction going on in the opening of this chart, and there's a focus on where is that restriction. And it's interesting, we opened the chart out with that July 3rd 11-degree Capricorn full moon. And the opposite of Capricorn is Cancer. And I'll let you go in and dive into that on your own. But there's something to be said about looking at our home life and looking at our very public career life. Looking where we are hidden and internal and looking at where we then express ourselves out into the world for all to see. These are all part of Capricorn and Cancer and themes. So look at Saturn, look at the moon, find out what's speaking for you this month regarding those 2 planets. It's definitely important because the new moon in Cancer occurs July 17th. And of course, opposite Cancer is Capricorn. So we have this flip-flop of energy going on with these moons in July. I want to talk about Pluto for a moment, because I really feel that that's important to talk about in light of what's going on within the United States chart where Pluto had its return, and of course within our own general area. So Pluto opens up in Capricorn in retrograde July 1st. Having moved forward into Aquarius, this has all been discussed, now in retrograde coming back into that 29-degree of Capricorn in the opening of the chart. On January 12th, it's very important to note this, 2024, and on that day we'll have the Sun, Moon, and Pluto all coming together in a conjunction. So that's an important date to look at, something to keep in mind, January 12th, 2024. Also, January 20th, 2024, and the challenging 29 point is in this place of dissolving, this place of change. 29 degree is highly erratic and highly mutable. It isn't really anything. It's in the process of alchemy and in the process of moving into a new sign and into a new intention. So, with the same sign and house and 3 personal planets there back on the 20th hitting Pluto, it's a big deal. And Pluto and Mars working together, of course, they're pairs in the zodiac. They rule over Aries, god of war Mars, and Scorpio, the I feel sign, water sign of the zodiac, with Pluto and Mars ruling it. So there is this, I would say, psychological theme there with Aries representing the first house of the ascendant, the very personal body, the way the body maneuvers around the zodiac and the planet, to the penetrating and highly introverted and introspective sign of Scorpio ruling the 8th house of psychology and a lot of other things. But it's important to take a look at these dynamics because we have a lot going on with the energies of Pluto when it changes signs. On January 21st, Pluto does ingress into Aquarius at 00 degrees. So very potent energy. On May 3rd, it retrogrades once again. May 3rd, 2024, retrogrades once again, where it will go back. And then on October 12th, 2024, it starts to move forward again. So we've got this back and forth movement of Pluto. And it isn't until November 27th, 2024, until January 2044, that Pluto finally makes its way into Aquarius and stays there. So there's a lot of movings going on with Pluto. And we know that Pluto is those compulsive forces. It's the unconscious nature. It's going to bring about great transformation. With it being the outer planet, we know it's more of a cultural understanding of Pluto and what Pluto's trying to do in mass. It's the furthest planet out. See our episode on Pluto for more of a breakdown on how Pluto is. But this is our ability to organize here and deal with society. So it's our personal power. And with our personal power changing, moving into Aquarius, whose ruler is Uranus, the inner individuality, versus that 10th house, house of government, and where they've had control and power in Capricorn, we're seeing a whole different understanding of how Pluto's going to express itself. Pluto is intuitive and creative inside of Aquarius with the ruling planet Uranus. This is expressed as inspiration, or it could be rebellion, sudden change. Breakthroughs in societal structures become more independent and original here as Aquarius rules the 11th house themes of the zodiac. This is a highly fixed air house, the 11th house, that is interested in like-minded people, similar interests in achieving ideals and hopes. So joint activities are very expressed in the 11th house, but in each person bringing their individual unique ways to the group and being accepted and being able to express, for this is the house of your larger groups, your larger friendships, and of the collective, right? So very important to see, what is Pluto going to be doing there in Aquarius? We'll be covering that as I go down the road and talk more about it. But wanted to just bring that out as an overview of what Pluto's going to be up to. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump into what I have prepared here on Satanism. So the term Satanism is derived from the word Satan, which refers to the devil or the adversary in various religious and mythological traditions. The precise origin of the word Satanism is difficult to pinpoint, as it's evolved over time and was used in different contexts. So the concept of satanic worship, or the worship of Satan, can be traced back to ancient religious beliefs, folklore, and mythology. In Christianity, Satan is portrayed as a fallen angel who rebels against God, is considered the embodiment of evil, therefore, and the association of Satan with worship and the idea of organized Satanism emerged primarily during the Christian Middle Ages. The word Satanism itself started to appear more prominently in the English language during the 16th and 17th centuries, was often used in Christian theological discussions, polemics, and witchcraft trials to describe perceived heretical or diabolical beliefs and practices. So it's important to note the term Satanism encompasses a broad range of beliefs and practices, some of which may be religious or philosophical in nature, while others may involve purely symbolic or theatrical elements. The modern satanic movement, known as contemporary or modern Satanism, emerged in the 20th century with different branches and ideologies. The term Satanism primarily pertains to religious or philosophical beliefs and practices that involve the veneration or symbolic association with Satan or satanic figures. It is important to distinguish between the historical and religious context of Satanism and its contemporary usage. In terms of epidemiology, it's challenging to provide precise quantitative data on the prevalence or usage of the word Satanism due to its diverse and multifaceted nature. The term gained visibility and attention through various mediums such as literature, film, music, and popular culture, which have contributed to its notoriety. Additionally, media coverage of certain events or individuals associated with satanic themes or activities have further influenced public perception in discourse surrounding Satanism. I think it's important to note that the vast majority of self-identified Satanists do not engage in illegal or harmful activities. Contemporary Satanism is often characterized by a focus on individualism, personal freedom, and non-theistic or symbolic interpretations. Many self-identified Satanists adhere to ethical codes, such as the Satanic Temple's 7 tenets, which promote compassion, empathy, and justice. I think it's crucial to approach the subject of Satanism with critical thinking and to distinguish between the various forms and interpretations within the broader satanic movement. The term's epidemiology is intricately tied to cultural, religious, and social factors, making it complex and an evolving subject of study. The term Satan originates from religious and mythological traditions and has been used for centuries to refer to the devil or to the adversary. It is challenging to determine the precise epidemiology or usage patterns of the word throughout history. However, I can provide some general information on the term's historical usage. The word Satan has its roots in various ancient Semitic languages, such as Hebrew and Aramaic. In the Hebrew Bible or Old Testament, Satan appears as a title rather than a personal name. It is used to describe a heavenly being who acts as an adversary or an accuser in the divine court. In this context, the term is more of a role or function rather than a specific individual. The earliest written records containing the word Satan can be found in the Hebrew Bible, specifically in the book of Job, Zechariah, and Chronicles, believed to have been written between the 6th and 14th centuries BCE. However, the concept of a malevolent or evil figure opposing God can be traced back even further to ancient Near Eastern mythology and religious beliefs. Over time, the concept of Satan evolved and was further developed within early Jewish and Christian traditions. In Christianity, Satan is depicted as a fallen angel who rebelled against God and became the embodiment of evil and temptation. The term Satan gained prominence in Christian theology and religious discourse during the early centuries of the Common Era. It's important to note that the understanding and interpretation of the term Satan can vary across different religious traditions and cultural contexts. Its usage and significance have continued to evolve over time, contributing to a rich tapestry of religious, literary, and cultural references. In Latin, the word for Satan is Satana or Satanus. These terms are derived from the Greek word Satanus, which itself originates from the Hebrew term Satan. The Latin word for Satana or Satanus is used to refer to the devil or the adversary in Christian theology and religious texts. So with that, that's just a brief overview of Satanism and what I discovered as I was researching. I want to go into Anton LaVey, as he is a central theme and figure around Satanism, as he founded the First Church of Satan in San Francisco, California. Anton LaVey was born as Howard Stanton LaVey on April 11, 1930, and he was an influential figure in the development of modern Satanism. He's best known as the founder of the Church of Satan and the author of the Satanic Bible. LaVey's life story is marked by his controversial religious beliefs and his role in shaping the modern satanic movement. LaVey was born in Chicago, Illinois, and grew up in a fairly Jewish, secular family. He developed an early interest in the occult, magic, and the supernatural, which led him to explore various philosophies and belief systems. He was also influenced by figures like Aleister Crowley, the British occultist. In 1966, LaVey founded the Church of Satan in San Francisco, California, and became its high priest. The Council of Satan presented a unique philosophy that emphasized individualism, rationality, and the pursuit of personal desires and pleasures. LaVey's teachings rejected traditional religious and moral conventions and advocated for self-empowerment and indulgence. The Satanic Bible, published in 1969, became the central text of the Church of Satan and outlined its core beliefs and rituals. It presented Satan as a symbol of individualism, rebellion against societal norms, and the pursuit of personal freedom. LaVey's writings in the Church of Satan attracted attention and controversy, often being misunderstood or misrepresented by the media. Throughout his life, LaVey cultivated a theatrical persona, often appearing in elaborate satanic regalia and holding rituals and ceremonies. He became a public figure and was involved in various media appearances, interviews, and debates, further cementing his influence on popular culture's perception of Satanism. Anton LaVey passed away October 29, 1997, in San Francisco. While his legacy remains controversial, his impact on the modern satanic movement cannot be overlooked. The Church of Satan and LaVey's writings continue to influence and inspire various branches and interpretations of Satanism to this day. So here's a timeline of what I came up with, starting with age 16. He dropped out of high school to become the second oboist in San Francisco Ballet. Oboist. Is that how you say that? The oboe? He played the oboe? Oboist? I don't know how to say that. In the San Francisco Ballet Orchestra. At 17, he joined the circus to become a lion tamer, travailed playing music, and he was seen as an outsider. He had an inherent mistrust of the groupthink, and after the circus, he studied the occult and magic, became a photographer for the occult and occultic affairs. Then in 1966, again, he founded the Church of Satan. So from there, his life was pretty public and can be tracked and traced by going through his timeline. What I want to do is take a look at his chart here and just review a few things. And the first thing I want to point out is his vertex placement. And in astrology, the vertex is a point within the astrological wheel or chart that's associated with fated encounters, significant relationships, and important turning points in one's life. It's not a celestial body, but a mathematical point calculated based on the interception of the ecliptic, the path of the sun, and the prime vertical, the plane that drives the sky into the east and west. The vertex is often interpreted in relation to relationships, partnerships, and spiritual connections. It is believed to represent encounters and experiences that have a transformative and karmic quality. The vertex is thought to indicate moments when people come into our lives with a sense of destiny or predestination, and it can manifest in different ways depending on the individual's birth chart, aspects, and planetary placements. So the light aspects of this, or the places where it excels, is in fated encounters. The vertex can signify unexpected and significant encounters with people who play an important role, such as our romantic partners, very close friends and unions, and spiritual guides. Regarding synchronicity, the vertex may bring about synchronicities and meaningful coincidences that lead to personal growth, expansion, and a sense of purpose. Relationship transformations here in the light high aspect under the vertex influence have a highly transformative effect on individuals for personal and spiritual growth for the better. But in the shadow, there can be a lot of intensity and turmoil with the vertex, and it can be very tumultuous regarding relationships and encounters that challenge the ego and the individual's belief systems. Letting go and loss is seen in the shadow here. Very, very challenging. Separations are hard where the vertex is. And letting go and embracing change. Karmic lessons here of a shadow aspect, can symbolize patterns that the individual needs to address and resolve in order to personally grow and evolve and heal, so to speak, the karma associated with the individual spirit. It's important to note that the interpretations of the vertex may vary among astrologers. There's so much to it, so much more than I said, but it is very prominent in his chart. And it's really important to look at other planets that are there, which are conjunctions or placements or energy points in all of the aspects, because astrology is complex and a multifaceted system. It has layers upon layers upon layers. And individual experiences, of course, are going to differ. Again, based on personal choices, free will, the childhood, the blueprint of the soul, and individual choices. So Anton's vertex is placed within the astrological sign of Leo and is ruled by the sun itself, the very center of our solar system. So think about everything I just said and now place antonlevey's vertex there. Leo's mantra is I will. It's roaring here. And Leo operates within the stage of the fifth house, which represents love affairs, romantic attachments, our self-expression, creativity, the arts, drama, what we love, how we love, and it creates children here. So it's also the house of children, where our pleasures are, where we like to play. Subsequently, where we may be lazy like the lion and lay about all day and not pounce until it's an emergency. Highly charged energy. The sun here representing our inner purpose, inner drive, and self-will. The will to be is in the power of the sun. The source of will and self-motivation is central to the sun. Confidence, our individuality, our strength, our creativity. The health of the sun will let us know how this is in our lives, in our potential and our pitfalls. The fifth house also represents our treasures, gambling, perspectives about speculative wealth. So there are many meanings to the fifth house. It goes way deeper than that, just hitting the surface. But Leo operates within the energetic fields and signatures of the fixed mode of the sun, preserving nature here that's able to carry out its tasks when it is fixed. And Leo's element is fire, where our inspiration and passions reside, where we are born to love. Therefore, our intuition, our intuitive knowing about who we are and our offspring and children. In looking at the Goldsmith's Revised Sabian symbol for the 7th degree of Leo, which is where Anton LaVey sits with his Leo placement. His vertex is not in the 5th house. His vertex is in the 6th house in Leo. 6 degrees, 28 minutes. And the Sabian symbols always round up to the next degree. So this is a 7-degree vertex in Leo within the 6th house. And I think that this Sabian interpretation grabbed him perfectly and explains where he was coming from in light of the vertex. A great conqueror looks up at the crumbling Sphinx, backdropped by the bright stars of the Egyptian sky. The Egyptian sun god was Ra. Now, spend some time looking at Ra and his energy and what he was all about, and you will get a really good understanding of Anton LaVey's personal power. Sense of wonder in the face of the vastness of the universe, facing life's eternal questions. What is the meaning of life? And what should I be doing here? Making a lasting name for oneself by leaving impressive achievements for posterity. Seeking earthly glory versus realizing that even the most glorious civilizations eventually return to sand. So an inner fear of obliteration. Endowing the natural world with subjective meaning through poetry or surrealistic art. Appreciating the mythic dimension of one's life versus seeing life as a glorious dream or a shimmering mirage. Recognizing that each person must impose their own meaning on life, even as each civilization has subconsciously projected different constellations on the heavens. Precession of the astrologic ages, taking the long view. He was deeply self-imposing on himself, meaning, and I'm sure others, I haven't looked at that to say enough. I'm going to go into a little bit about his life here in this, but I don't know enough about him to know exactly what his personal relationships were like. But it is suggested that they were strained. And during Anton LaVey's lifetime, there are some controversies and social scandals surrounding him and the Church of Satan. So I'm going to talk about those, but I want to go back to his chart for a minute and say that also in the 6th house is the star Regulus, not very far away from the cusp of the 7th house. So his Regulus is under the radar, but it was rising and coming out into the public. And Regulus, of course, is one of the royal stars, meaning the little king. named by Copernicus, and it's the heart of the lion, and it's associated with generosity and ambition. And if well aspected, it will raise the person to high positions in life. Denotes successful activity, prominence, and wealth. In its nature is Mars and Jupiter. I'll let you dig into that deeper. But he was known, definitely famous, for his strong Leo signature and his leadership, represented by Leo as well, his ambition, his dedication, his authoritative power, confidence, his dramatic flair, his extrovertedness, wanting to be in the limelight, so to speak, too. All of this happening in the daily house, the daily life represented by the sixth house. So daily he was seeking this. Daily he would encounter vortex situations, other people bumping and jostling. And boy, that is so definitely true of his life. He was not uncontroversial in society. My goodness. Born with Pluto in Cancer of all places. This man definitely brought out themes of rituals and satanic worship. He publicized his rituals, including satanic baptisms, weddings, and funerals, and attracted significant attention and controversy. And these ceremonies were often said to have very theatrical elements, and by some were perceived very shocking or even offensive. The media attention from the Church of Satan gained considerable coverage, which contributed to its notoriety and his notoriety, fueled by public speculation. In the media portrayal of LaVey and Satanism, often they were sensationalized and misunderstood, leading to a negative public perception. His involvement in the Manson family is very controversial. I've read places where he was involved and where it was just a rumor. LaVey denied any direct involvement with Charles Manson or his actions and said that they were strictly rumors. So the connections were not substantiated. So moral and religious outcry, this is huge. LaVey's rejection of traditional religious and moral conventions, along with his public nature of the satanic practices, led to a backlash from religious groups and individuals who considered Satanism to be morally objectionable or a threat to societal norms. There's his vertex right there in the shadow aspect, just all full steam ahead and didn't stop, put everything out there, was completely overt with the way that he represented his practices. It's important to note that some controversies surrounding LaVey and the Church of Satan, a lot of them fueled again by misunderstanding and sensationalism. Although he was very theatrical, and he had a theatrical persona with his writings as well, he was provocative, and it sometimes overshadowed the underlying philosophy of individualism and personal freedom advocated by the Church of Satan, where we saw him in excess and not balancing those energies. One other point in his chart is his Pluto, and he has it in the cardinal water sign of Cancer, ruled by the moon and within the fourth house of home. And Anton LaVey's upbringing and early life have been documented to some extent. Some key details here were, again, born April 11th, 1930, Chicago, Illinois, in a secular Jewish family. As mentioned, his parents were Michael Joseph LaVey, a liquor distributor, and Gertrude Augusta Colombe, a housewife. And as a child, with Pluto in the fourth house of home, he would have been drawn and intensely involved in taboo subjects related to the occult, magic, and the supernatural. Highly intelligent and an avid reader, he explored different philosophies and belief systems from a young age. He said he had a fascination with the carnival culture and the underground world of sideshows and carnivals. Didn't dig into that into the church, but that's interesting. His home life in his formative years was not extensively documented, but it's known that he had a rebellious streak and often clashed with his parents and authority figures, which Pluto in the fourth house would do as it sits opposite the 10th, right? So there's going to be a lot of clashing there with authority figures who rule the 10th house. And he was known to be extremely independent, highly on his own, self motivated, and pursuing his own interests. Overall, Anton LaVey's childhood and home life played a role in shaping his interests, beliefs, and later endeavors, which ultimately led him to founding the Church of Satan and his influential role with the movement. Having said that now, just an overview as I studied Satanism, here are some things I came away with. And these are, study this for yourself, of course, but Satanists do not believe in the devil. Many, as I researched and studied, didn't even believe he existed, that he is mythology and folklore. Since the word Satan in Latin means adversary or opposition, many see this as something that was made up and definitely not believable. So Satan works as a symbol to represent self-liberty for Satanists. Do what's best in your life, but harm no one is a mantra of Satanism. And there's many different areas of Satanism here and many different ways to go about Satanism and many different groups. So they do not believe in a higher power that's going to save them. There are no child or animal sacrifices going on in Satanism. This is a misnomer. And in fact, there are sources that denote and notate that if anyone abuses children or animals, especially children, their memberships are revoked and they can never be reinstated. So Satanism has at its core a reconnection with the inner power of self. The cross, although a universal and powerful symbol, holds no significance for the Satanists. Rather, they believe in the concept of dual forces at work, whereby good and evil exist within each man. Therefore, in the greater world, knowing your own personal power and success as a spirit having a human experience seems to be at the core of Satanism. In essence, the person is built on the foundation of self, not on the other persons, not on other gods or goddesses or figureheads or belief systems. One can see how this sort of thinking disrupts the powers that be, whose goal is weakness and herd mentality through the interdependence on the many and diverse matrix systems in place. What attracts people to Satanism is a love affair with the self, a philosophy that says, I need to know who I am, what my personal power is, and how to best go about it for my advantage. It's about not letting myself off the hook in trying to continually advocate for people, especially for those who cannot advocate for themselves. We see this a lot in Satanism. And there's a community of general acceptance and support for people who are accepting of others and seeking a deeper connection to themselves. So the concept of Satanism has its roots in various historical, cultural, and religious traditions. However, it's important to note that Satanism is a modern religious movement, and it has different branches and interpretations, each with its own stories. Here are a few significant events related to the development of modern Satanism. So the Church of Satan, founded by Anton LaVey, is one of the most well-known branches of modern Satanism, established April 30th, 1966 in San Francisco. That's the official date. And I was going to pull that chart, but that would have just taken us down a whole nother road. But I encourage you to look at that chart for yourself and do your self-study if you're into astrology. And in the comments, let us know what you found. The Satanic Temple, another prominent contemporary satanic organization, was established in 2013, was founded by Lucian Greaves and Malcolm Jerry. Satanic Temple does not view Satan as a literal supernatural being, but rather as a symbol representing rebellion, individualism, and rationality. So it's important to note that the origins of the philosophies and ideologies associated with Satanism can be traced back to the earlier times, including literary and cultural depictions of Satan as a rebellious figure or antagonist in religious narratives. Please remember that Satanism is a diverse and complex topic, and there are various interpretations and practices within the different branches of modern Satanism. So, with that, thank you. We appreciate you listening and taking the time with us, taking your time with us, I should say. And until next time, take care.